And that was the trailer for Palm Springs, the new Andy Samberg, Cristin Milioti comedy, which also has the distinction of being so far the most expensive acquisition at the Sundance Film Festival at, I think, $17.5 million. And I think a little bit more with guarantees and stuff like that they're probably not going to meet anyway, because this movie's not really getting a formal theatrical release of any kind. It joins sort of an ignominious crowd in terms of other movies that broke records for Sundance acquisitions. A couple of years ago, the most famous one that broke was The Birth of a Nation. That was that Nate Parker movie. Which bombed because it did not help that Nate Parker's like sexual misconduct allegations came out after that movie or shortly before that movie came out. That ruined it. Other expensive Sundance acquisitions that failed to perform at the box office was Late Night. That was that Mindy Kaling comedy from last year. I think it was last year that came out. And there was Brittany Runs a Marathon as well. That's that Jillian Bell movie. So not been a really good litany of expensive Sundance movies. The last movie that was acquired by Sundance for a hefty price tag that really wound up paying dividends had to be Little Miss Sunshine back in 2006. Give you an idea how old that movie is. But it's unfortunate. I'm going to say this. It's like a blessing in disguise. It's unfortunate that we couldn't see this movie in a theater. However, judging by other comparable movies like Andy Samberg or the Lonely Islands movie, Pop Star Never Stop, Never Stopping, it probably wasn't going to succeed at the box office. So I'm actually really happy this is on Hulu because more people will watch it. It's more convenient. And I'm pretty happy about that because I think this movie is a near lock to make my favorite films of the year. I liked it that much. I was pretty blown away when I saw that up until really shortly before its release, it had a 100% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Now it's at like high 90s. But man, this is a funny movie. And it's a breezy watch. There's a lot going on in it. And I like it a ton. It's kind of a riff on the time loop formula of reliving the same day after day after day. And which this movie, for the first thing, I'll throw it over to you, Joe, after I make this point. But I'll say this too. Like Groundhog Day, if you've seen that one, the Bill Murray movie, the most famous rendition of the formula, that movie sort of exhausted you in terms of like hitting the same points of the day over and over again. By the end of that movie, you were like worn down. This movie, at least for me, made me realize like, oh my God, to be stuck in that purgatorial space of not being able to go anywhere and can't even kill yourself. Like, no wonder Andy Samberg's Niles character is so apathetic with life. General impressions on Palm Springs. Joe, take it away.
First off, I just want to say, Knavery Inc., thank you for rating the channel with 4 other viewers, and Jake the Game Snake, thank you for popping in here as well. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, I have to say, like, it's amazing that, like, the Groundhog Day formula, like, kind of stopped for a period of time. And all of a sudden, like, we got Edge of Tomorrow with Tom Cruise, and it did some pretty fun stuff with that. Then we had the Happy Death Day movies, which I thought were pretty fun horror films, and even the sequel, which I thought was better than the original, which is very hard to do, especially for a horror film. This, like, again, they find refreshing stuff to do with this, because I don't really know if they actually really found something where it's like, hey, what if 2 people were stuck in the time loop this time around? Because most of the time it's just one person, and usually they'll interact with somebody like an Edge of Tomorrow where it's like, yeah, I'm stuck in this time loop and this is how I address it to you so you know what's going on. You've never really seen 2 people both knowing the situation that they're in and just trying to, like, you know, get through it together. And Andy Samberg and Cristin Milioti, is that how you say your last name?
Milioti, I believe.
Okay. They have great chemistry together, and they are so likable, and they have this, like, really funny, like, also kind of, like, demented thing to them when they're going through this whole thing, because when you're stuck in a time, like, loop for that long, like, Andy Samberg's been there, like, for who knows how long. The film doesn't even know, like, how long, because he even says, he's like, look, I just lost count. But, like, the 2 of them, like, even get crazy and demented with what they do. They put a bomb in the cake, like you saw in the trailer, and then, Cristin Milioti's character pretends that she's like an evil, like, Bond villain, like, that put the cake in there. Like, they get really creative and fun and demented with it. And it's kind of sweet, too. Like, them together on screen, they're fantastic. And I think that's what I liked most about this movie is that they found an angle to approach it at, make it kind of a romantic comedy, dark comedy in some sort of ways, too. and have these two leads really just carry the film.
Dominic, your thoughts?
So as usual, I didn't watch any marketing or trailers or whatever for this film. I don't really like watching trailers anymore, except maybe if it's like something like culturally massive, like a Star Wars or a Marvel thing. It's like, okay, fine, whatever. All I saw for this was the poster of Andy Samberg in a swimming pool and stuff. So I didn't even know about the time loop thing. So when that revealed itself, I was like, what the hell is going on? No, I should say, shout out to this movie for, as Joe said, as soon as it revealed that it was a Groundhog Day situation, it that immediately clicked with me when Andy Samberg woke up in bed. I was like, oh, okay. It's a Groundhog Day situation. I immediately made that connection, and it does a great job of easing that along, where it doesn't have to. It's smart enough to know that the audience will know what's going on here, and I just want to say off the bat, I really appreciate that. I should also note that this film was directed, as Steve mentioned, Max Barbacow, and written by Andy Ciara. So not Andy Samberg, but Andy Ciara. And I looked up just a very brief IMDb lookup of both of these gentlemen, and they haven't really done anything major. This is the biggest thing they've done so far. Obviously, lots of shorts, maybe some TV series stuff. Lodge 49, apparently. I'm not familiar with that, which is good that they're not Josh Tranking it and just diving headfirst into $1 billion project. But would that actually make this an indie movie? Because apparently according to Wikipedia, the budget was $5 million. Would that be?
I mean, it all depends, kind of like the studio. I would say yes. I mean, they did get picked up by Neon in conjunction with Hulu, and Neon has been a popular studio for like these small sort of genre movies.
Yeah.
You could call this an indie. You could call it an indie.
Yeah. At least compared to
nebulous.
It's very wide
nebulous,
release.
but yes.
Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to say that Barbacow and Ciara played very much to Andy Samberg's sensibilities of humor, and this was also multiple production companies involved here, but also the Lonely Island Classics is the name of the Lonely Island production company, which I actually never saw Popstar. I actually want to watch Popstar. I never got around to it, but I did see Hot Rod, and Hot Rod holds a very special place in my heart. Any criticisms of that movie are valid, and anyone who criticizes that movie, I'll be like, yeah, you're probably right. But goddamn, if there are parts of that movie that I just love for its, genuinely hilarious jokes, and it's even for its lesser jokes, it's still a wacky charm. And Palm Springs does not have crazy moments of, hey, let's take 10 minutes to make this one-off joke, and it's like, what the hell just happened? No, but it injects a lot of that humor, twists it really dark, because for any time loop scenario, I haven't watched Groundhog Day in forever, but even Groundhog Day got dark in moments, right? Because I mean, Bill Murray he did attempt suicide on screen, right? Like a couple of times.
He steps in front of a car, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I forget. I need to watch.
I think there's even a suicide montage, a brief one, but
that's what I thought.
The toaster, yeah, he puts the toaster in the bathtub. I think they do that as well. Yeah.
And it's obviously played for laughs, but there's a tinge of darkness in there and in this as well. But I should say in Palm Springs, very, very much so dark. But just the fact that he's able to keep that brevity, and as Joe said, the chemistry is what keeps it going, is what keeps the thing alive. And it's very character driven, because ultimately, while there is a lot of science fiction not a lot of science fiction, but sci-fi elements do pop up as the movie goes on, and it goes very much into the time loop logic and dissection of it. It's actually mostly just a movie about life, going on about life and problems, and just making it extremely human. And that's honestly what makes these potentially very, very gimmicky movies into something very, very special. And honestly, towards the beginning, especially because I had no idea what the hell was going on, and coupled with some of the kind of 80-ish or neon-esque aesthetics, gave me a little bit of a flashback to Ingrid Goes West.
I could see it.
At least with its
I think that was
setting.
another neon movie. I think that was another neon movie. Yes. Yeah.
One
of their early ones.
yeah, young kind of like focus on younger people and all that stuff. And even, and this is a reach, but even a little bit of Back to the Future as well, just in terms of its chaotic energy in the beginning, and probably helped by the fact that we recently saw that. But yeah, dude, and again, we don't want to spoil a lot of what goes on here because a lot of it is the fun and the surprise. But the writer and director here really played to Andy Samberg aesthetics and even to kind of like SNL-esque aesthetics, because there's like a montage scene in here where the characters are doing like wacky stuff, not like all the way wacky where it's like Hot Rod level, but just like this feels like it would be an SNL digital short, which was Andy Samberg's claim to fame. Like I will always maintain that Andy Samberg's digital shorts and Lonely Island digital shorts are like some defining. This I'm being serious on, like some of the defining aspects of humor in the mid 2000s and in the 2000s.
I want to bring that up after you.
Very profound effect on comedy. I'll let Steve go on about that, but overall, man, this was a hell of a ride. I had a lot of fun with it, and I would gladly watch this again. And Chelsea didn't wind up watching this with me. I would sit down and watch this again with her, but I had a lot of fun with it.
The Lonely Island, I went back actually after I wrote my review of Palm Springs. I went back and watched a handful of their music videos because I'll tell you right now, I never watched Saturday Night Live growing up much. I always make the joke, and this is way too harsh, but I always make the joke with Saturday Night Live, like when they had their 50-year anniversary or 40 or whenever it was, I always say like, 40 years and I'm still waiting to laugh, but
yeah, man.
I mean,
if you watch religiously, it feels like that sometimes. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not a big SNL fan, never have been. I don't think I ever will be. I always laugh how Kenan Thompson, though, how like he had his career and now he's on SNL as opposed to the other way around. I always find that funny, but no, but the Lonely Island, man, I remember when I first heard them and they had that song, which I've never been a big fan of I think it was like their breakout hit, that Jizz in My Pants. I've never been a big fan of that song. But when they made I'm on a Boat, that song still slaps. That song still slaps. The video's good. It's a send-up of rap music, too. The other one, and I'll tell you right now, I forgot how much I love this one. This one might be my favorite. It's hard to pinpoint, but probably my favorite song and video combination by them has to be Jack Sparrow with Michael Bolton.
Yeah, that one's great.
I watched that again, and that is so good because it's not only the concept and the video and the costumes that are funny. Michael Bolton crushes that chorus.
Yeah.
Like, it is so good and clever. Reba's another one. That one had Kenan Thompson on it, too. Their song Reba, Two Worlds Collide. They had the song Three Way with Lady Gaga. Like, they were making good pop parodies that were funny and great. It was Andy Samberg, Akiva Schaffer, who directed Hot Rod, and Jorma Taccone. And they've all gone on to do some things. I think Jorma Taccone directed MacGruber, if I'm not mistaken.
I will defend MacGruber. I will simultaneously
too,
defend and retreat from MacGruber. I have a soft spot for that movie too. But like at the same time, I was like, okay, if you don't like this movie, I get it. But I love that movie.
Yes, but The Lonely Island, I'm big fans. Schaefer and Taccone are producers on this, and I can imagine they had some, push-pull on the writing process a bit. But I think the other thing, too, besides bringing another person into the time loop concept that they do in this movie, I think the other thing that sells the hell out of it is really the musings on romance and existentialism even that it offers. It's not too weighty. It's not too dense. I mean, Andy Samberg early on in the film has this rambling monologue, which is kind of how him and Sarah, his character Niles and Sarah meet. She's kind of like the black sheep of the family. He bails her out when she's drunk and she's the maid of honor and has to give her speech. And it kind of has those moments where it's like, this is actually thoughtful. And this boils down to something more than a gimmick, which is kind of what the time loop trope sort of feels like sometimes. And I don't know why, but like the existentialism factor really came to me when I was like, this guy's been in this time loop for so long, he can't even remember what the hell he did for a living. Like, I like that's what it really started. Like, I was sitting there on like a Saturday morning, like really having a crisis with myself. Like, my God, like to live through that. I know it's completely unrealistic, but it's a credit to the writers and a credit to the movie that makes you think so heartily and heavily about an off the wall, impossible concept. And that's exactly what they do with Palm Springs.
I was just gonna say that You say it's unrealistic to live the same day over and over again, but in these times, in these trying times,
Yes.
maybe not too far off.
No, and that's the other thing too. It's on streaming services. It comes during a time when it's like it's hard to define or discern what the hell time is even anymore. Especially if you've been staying at home throughout this or working from home. It's hard, and I think that even plays into it. Just funnily enough plays into the time period. Other points you guys want to discuss, I made the pact too that we can't really talk about J.K. Simmons' performance in the movie because I want to leave that to be a surprise. But let me just say, and this doesn't ruin anything, let me just say he has the line in the movie and it has to do with watering dog shit. He's so good.
Right.
He's so good at this thing.
He's good. He's good at whatever, man.
Just what his character is, like how he serves the plot. Again, a refreshing thing to do with this whole time loop thing. Like, oh my god, that's actually really hilarious what they're doing with him. Can't reveal what it is, but that's funny as hell.
Yeah, he's very good. And I mean, this is probably Andy Samberg's finest hour as an actor. Yeah. And he's done well before. I'm not knocking him. It's like he was good in Hot Rod. Awesome. Brooklyn Nine-Nine is good. I've watched a lot of that. Pop Star, he's very funny, and the songs of that movie are great. But this is his finest hour. There's a great performance in this movie of like apathy, contempt, like budgeting nihilism that he sells, and it's kind of an Andy Samberg you're not used to seeing. Like, and I think it challenges him as an actor in a way too, and he lives up to it.
Let me just say also that it was also giving me vibes of, and this is how you know I like a movie is when it starts reminding me of other shit I like, but it gave me even a bit of a reminder of Scott Pilgrim, oddly enough, where it was like, I mean, one for just it's pure chaos, although Scott Pilgrim is just more over the top with it, but more so in the fact that I should also say I also read the Scott Pilgrim graphic novels, and it dives deeper into Scott Pilgrim's existentialism. Dude, I'm in like my mid-20s. I have no job prospects or anything. I'm just kind of drifting through life, and Andy Samberg is doing that in this movie in the most literal, extreme sense of existentialism and just drifting through time, the looping timeline. But it touches so much of that, and as Steve mentioned, that is what makes a movie endearing, charming, relatable, down to earth. I'm throwing out all these adjectives, but I mean them, and it's what puts it over the top as opposed to something a little more gimmicky. And not that there's anything wrong with a good gimmick, because Edge of Tomorrow is a total gimmick, but I love that movie because it does it so well.
Go on, Joe. Any other thoughts?
No, I mean I'm right there with you. Like after you made that comparison to Scott Pilgrim, I totally see what you're saying. But yeah, out of everything I've seen Andy Samberg in, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Hot Rod, SNL stuff, and even oh my god, Pop Star. Like after seeing this, it's like, you know what, man? Like, yeah, like I think this is my favorite performance of his, and it's because he does do a bit more dramatic stuff in this as well. But like even the jokes and the comedy he has in this movie made me laugh hard, man. I honestly loved him in this movie. I thought he was killing it the entire time. And it like I said, both of them have great chemistry. I really got nothing much more to say. It's just like I'll say this: I'm glad it was an hour and 30 minutes because it is perfectly paced, and like right when it ends, it's like perfect. There's nothing more to tell with this story. Honestly, you guys hit everything you guys needed to hit.
That makes it much better too for rewatches.
Exactly.
Because if you elongate the movie, particularly in the discovery phase, like when Cristin Milioti, we should talk about her, but when Cristin Milioti, like when she's like discovering the time loop and going through that panic phase, if in a rewatch that would be much harder to watch, no matter how charming it is. If they keep it brisk, relatively brisk, and keep it shorter and therefore more exciting. And I'm really glad they did, actually. And then moving on to Cristin Milioti, who I have a total crush on, by the way. I think it's in the eyes. She's freaking gorgeous.
No, she's got those eyes.
Yeah, for sure. But also she for those who have seen Black Mirror and the episode USS Callister, this is not the same plot, but it does have very, very similar vibes. This is just comparisons up and down the place, which is, I guess, makes it good. But this is the same thing where Cristin Milioti wakes up and finds herself in a horrifying situation and kind of stumbles about and then just has to pull herself together and get out of this mess. Bring the characters out of this mess, which if you've seen that USS Callister episode, is pretty much kind of her main MO in this. And man, she's so good in this, and it's a 1-to-1 thing with Andy Samberg. However well one does, the other matches that. And there is a specific moment where I absolutely fell in love with these characters, and I guess fell in love with this movie, which is if you know the Groundhog Day kind of scenario and you know the beats of it, you can kind of guess that there is a moment where the characters kind of surrender to it. And man, dude, there's like a dance scene where I'm like, sorry, I'm using the F-bomb. Like, this is fucking awesome. I love this movie now. So yeah, that's when it hit me. When it hit me.
I gotta agree to that, man, because like for her performance, because I've seen her in tons of TV stuff, and I was like, man, when is she finally gonna get the movie role that she deserves? And while like, yeah, it sucks that this wasn't in theaters, I feel like the fact that we're in a pandemic and this is on streaming, and I've been recommending this like crazy to people. I'm hoping this gives her good word of mouth that her career can get going, because I loved her in How I Met Your Mother. I loved her in that episode of Black Mirror. And even in Fargo season 2, she's not in it that much, but she's great in that show as well. And it's like, man, like, you know, I want to see her like do even more, and this is exactly what I wanted to see. She excels.
She was in The Wolf of Wall Street actually as Jordan Belfort's first wife, but like you're not gonna compare to a new Margot Robbie. No, so like she had no chance.
She's gonna get overshadowed.
Yeah. But yeah, no, this is awesome. So awesome.
Yeah. I like this one a lot. Last point I'll make, too, is that this is an attractive movie to look at, too. Cinematography is really good. I'm blanking on who does it, but cinematography is terrific. I was going to say, you get the name?
Oh, man. I think it's Vietnamese. Yeah.
He is a Vietnamese
Tran,
man.
Which I'm sure I butchered. Quyen Tran.
Yeah, I know he's a Vietnamese gentleman who did the cinematography. He's really good. This movie accentuates like the desert sand and the aqua water really well.
Yeah.
And I find it beautiful to look at. This is really good. I think this is spry. I think it's funny. I think Andy Samberg is terrific here. I think Cristin Milioti, she has the right amount of attitude and spunk to sell the role and do a very good job. And I think the writing is whip smart. It's kept brief. It's only about 88 minutes or so, 87 minutes. So it's not a tax at all. I find it terrific. It is probably my favorite comedy of the year thus far. One of my favorite films thus far. I give it 3.5 out of 4 stars.
I'll go.
For sure.
I was going to say, who's taking it?
I'll keep it short because I'm just right there with you on everything that you said. This was a fun movie. I had a lot of fun watching this. It was a great watch. Andy Samberg killed it. Everybody kills it in this movie, honestly. Great comedy, and like that's saying a lot this year because the comedies we've watched have been pretty bad. I didn't get a chance to watch the Eurovision movie yet. I've been hearing good things about that still. But like in terms of comedies, yeah, this is definitely one of the better ones. This will probably be like, I'm sure we're going to do like a top 5, maybe top 10 if we actually see that many movies that are new and worthy of it. At the end of the year, this is definitely going to be in there for me as well. This is 3.5 out of 4 stars for me as well.
That leaves you, D.
This is like a movie tailor-made to my sensibilities. It has because I'm just doing comparisons apparently tonight, but like it has the skeleton of a Groundhog Day / Edge of Tomorrow. It has the existential wanderings of a kind of like a Scott Pilgrim while also maintaining that energy and funness. It's got the darkness of the twisted darkness of I already forgot the name of what I'm thinking of, but of something that buoys it really well emotionally and gives it that sentimentality that I really like. And then on top of that, it has 2 incredible actors, one of whom is now safe to say Andy Samberg. I'll be bold here. I'll say with this role, I think that puts Andy Samberg in the Legends category of comedians, maybe in the lower Legends category.
Oh, that's a hot take.
That's a very hot take. That's a hot take.
He's at least the upper tier of comedians working today. I'll give you that. But he's been around for over a decade. I mean, he's been around for about 14 years now.
Yeah, that's definitely a very bold take. I'll own that.
Hot take.
I'll put him up there because at least in terms of his effect on the industry and comedy as a whole. But so charming in this, and Cristin Milioti once again knocking it out of the park. I got to give this a 4-star, man. I got to give this a very fun, very exciting 4 stars because this just breezed on by.